Morning and welcome to amazing Austin and welcome to South by Southwest. I'm Jim Jansen. I'll be your moderator for the first panel, and please allow me a short introduction. I work for Clue. I'm their Chief Revenue Officer. My background has been with Google and Unilever in sales, marketing, strategy, and operations. For those of you not familiar with Clue, we're a global AI. I'm sorry for the word, but AI and data company. We provide personalization for brands, agencies, and retailers, basically. We work for clients like Netflix, JCDecaux, Starbucks, PepsiCo, and the likes. If you're interested in growing revenue and personalization, I'm here joined by a few of my colleagues. We would love to talk to you. But now on to the panel. Good morning, all.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning.
So we're going to talk about 2025, media innovation and trends. And before we do so, I'd love to kind of introduce the panel. So starting all the way at the right, we have Carmen Graf, who's the Global VP Marketing, Advertising, Media and Events of Indeed.
Yes.
Welcome, Carmen.
Thank you.
As you all know, Indeed is the #1 job site in the world. Joined here is Gabe Alonso, Vice President, Integrated Marketing and Experience of Pollo Loco. Welcome.
Nice to meet you all. Thank you.
And Pollo Loco is actually celebrating its 50th anniversary this year. Yes. And last but not least is Matt Fantazier. There we go. Head of Integrated Media at Kenvue, formerly part of J&J, of course, and known for brands like Band-Aid, Banderil, and Neutrogena. Welcome all. We'll open it up for questions later on as well. But let's start with an easy question. We want to get to know you guys just a little bit. So explain us a little bit about your role and talk us about a project you are very proud of. Carmen, can we start with you?
And I'll start. Okay. So I'm the Global VP at Indeed. I lead all of the global brand advertising, the media, social, and events. And let's see, I am so proud of so many things, but I would have to say one of the things I'm most proud of is a program we do called Rising Voices. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's in its 5th year. It's been very successful. And here is why. It is when we help all people get jobs, not just all people get jobs. And when we started looking through kind of the lens of all audiences, we realized specifically in the entertainment, film and entertainment industry that the BIPOC audience was far underrepresented. So we partnered with Lena Waithe from Hillman Grad, and we created 10 films. We gave them each $100,000. Which isn't much, as you know, and had them create films on about the future of work through their eyes. And we have now launched it at Tribeca Film Festival, and it's in its 5th year. So you can catch those films online at Indeed/Rising Voices.
Cool, thank you.
Great. Well, good morning, everyone. Something about stools. I always feel so short. I feel like, hey, guys, how's it going? 5'7" problems. So nice to meet you all. I oversee integrated marketing experience. So effectively, the way that I look at my team is we have demand gen on one side, demand capture on the other. On the demand gen side, it's like social, PR, influencers, culture, all that good stuff. On the capture side, it's CRM, loyalty, our digital ecosystem, so app, web, for us, like kiosks, any consumer-facing technology in restaurant, and then paid media kind of straddles, both the demand gen, demand capture, depending on how we deploy it. And I know we'll talk a little bit of some of our marketing programs later as it pertains to media and such. So I'll kind of flip it a little bit, and particularly proud of how the company and in particular my team really rose to the challenge during the LA fires, and we've been able to donate over 3,000 meals over the last couple months to first responders and families in need. It's just been something that's been very near and dear to our heart. Obviously, it's our hometown, making sure that we can support those who need food. And so for us, it's been kind of a labor of love in that regard, and making sure that everybody's fed and continuing to support those who need help even post all fires being put out. So kind of a more recent example of something I'm particularly proud of for working at EPL.
Thank you. Matt?
Hi, everyone. I'm Matt Fantazier. I lead integrated media at Kenvue. So what that means is all of our brand media, all of our retail media as well, and all the data and audience work that goes across that. So hard to follow these two do-gooders here. I'm going to talk about selling Tylenol now, but good on you. So what exemplifies, I guess, what I do and what my team has been leading, which is really exciting, is bringing together the worlds of retail and brand media as just media. We talk about it, you hear it in the industry a lot. Not a lot of people actually do it. It's hard to do because there are structural barriers that create silos and different budgets, all that sort of thing. We've broken that down at Kenvue. I oversee all of that investment, and my team does as well. So one example that I'll give that is really exciting is the work that Tylenol has been doing around Greatness Hurts. So you may have seen the campaign during the Olympics last summer. We had a really cool spot tied in with a lot of integrations. Vinny in the front knows all about that. But then tied that in with executions at retail, the trade executions, all of the different things working together as one integrated media plan, because we know consumers don't know the difference of ads being served to them by an NBC or Walmart. They just see a Tylenol message. So that work's been really exciting. It's extended into the NFL this fall and spring, and then going forward, looking at other opportunities to bring this to life. But that's a sort of a simple example of how we've brought those worlds together as just one thing for our brands.
Fantastic. Thank you all. So most of the CMOs I'm talking to actually explain how rapidly things are changing, right? If you, for instance, take the path to consumer purchase, now actually starts with ChatGPT, for instance. TikTok's future is uncertain, as we know. Retail media is just getting bigger and bigger. So could you speak a little bit about kind of what is the biggest thing changing in your marketing strategy this year? Matt, you want to start?
Sure. I mean, just to extend on what I was talking about before, I think the biggest thing for us is looking at all media as just media. So how we are working with our partners, evaluating opportunities, and really doing what's best brand out. So really trying to break down, hey, do we have this retailer plan or that retailer plan? It's all one plan. And really having those tough conversations of, I may not want to buy your media. I may want your data. That's something I'm willing to pay for perhaps, but I don't want to get, held up for some nonsense media that's not going to work. So I think that's the biggest thing for us this year is really changing that conversation and becoming a lot more performance-based and holding our partners accountable to that wherever they sit in the ecosystem. So I think that connection point is really one of the biggest shifts we are looking at this year. And the biggest piece of that we are really bullish on is decoupled retailer data. Retailers have fantastic data sets. I want to pull those into my executions nationally. So getting them out of the silo of the retail environment, pulling them into what we're doing nationally to reach those consumers, be it a Walgreens, CVS, Kroger, whomever they are, but doing that through our broader executions because we know that drives marketplace. It's really not driving specific outcomes. It's broader than that. So that's probably the biggest shift we are enacting this year across our portfolio.
Cool. Thank you. Gabe?
Yeah, sure. So for those who are unaware of EPL, El Pollo Loco, we are a Southwest regional brand. We have just under 500 restaurants in 7 states throughout the Southwest. And obviously, LA, California, that's really our home base. We're strong there. But one of the ways that we look to drive awareness and really consideration as well is through influential voices. And so when we look at how we're bringing in and leveraging influencers, creator as part of our marketing and media mix, a lot has shifted for us over the last probably 12 to 15 months, give or take. In particular, we used to effectively focus on investing in maybe a dozen voices, mid-tier macro influencers. So think about a few 100,000 followers plus, maybe 1 million plus, depending on our budgets and the level of investment for that particular product. And what would occur is what I like to call like firework marketing. Burns brightly for like a couple of weeks and then it just fizzles out, right? This is kind of boom splat approach, which is great when you're kind of showing a success in the first couple of weeks, but when you need to sustain that, we need to continue to drive sales, the entire course of a product launch, that doesn't help us as much. So what we've started to do is shift away budget and really our strategy from the macros and mid-tiers to micros and nanos. And you're probably, if you're in this world, you've heard that shift happening already a lot. But for us, it's proven to be quite successful in that kind of starting last August and the prior, call it 16 months or so, we had contracted 60 influencers in that mid-tier plus range. From August through the end of last year, we were able to bring in over 100 influencers at that micro and nano level. And what happened is we were able to increase reach and impressions. Our engagement rates were better. Clearly, content increased because we had more people talking about us. And on top of that, we whitelist all of our micro and nano content, which allows us to put money behind it. And the CPM went down overall. So suddenly, we were able to see very specifically that this investment in voices doesn't have to be these big brand names or big household names, TikTok names, whatever you want to call it. But actually, we can invest in more of a groundswell approach. It becomes more efficient for us. And also we can deploy it on an evergreen basis where we can bring in more key messages, more RTBs, not just sort of our product launch for that day. So we're continuing to sort of tweak that approach, even looking at now at some UGC platforms, thinking about how we can redeploy some of those micro nano funds into even smaller folks so we can get more people talking about us for a brand like us where we really need to drive awareness that starts really from the bottom up. It's proven to be so far quite successful. And I was talking about it with somebody earlier, like the marketing spidey sense that we all have. It feels like we're starting to build a lot of momentum in the brand. So it's an exciting time.
Can I be a micro nano
of course.
Influencer
if
for you?
If you like chicken, anybody can. Let me know.
Bring on the chicken. I guess I will answer that by saying, how are we shifting? And the biggest shift we have made is over the past couple of years, everything's been short term. Drive revenue, drive revenue, drive revenue. And brand has gotten, although we still spend a lot behind brand, it hasn't gotten its fair share. And so what we have been doing is we have been two things. One, we've been working with an MMM model through analytic partners that allows us to tie brand health metrics to business outcomes. And that is incredible. So not only can I understand the incremental revenue that brand drives and the return on ad spend, but I can also understand unaided consideration and brand of choice. This is what every CFO needs to hear, and it has really shifted our way into more brand this year. I'll also say we're experimenting, actually not even experimenting, we are like all into clean rooms now so that we can take that first party data, our data, match it and understand incrementality, and then take that data and collaborate or calibrate our models. So, and then lastly, I'll just say the other thing we're doing as part of all that is when we talk about these things, creative never gets brought up, right? It's all about the data and the media and the impressions and all these things. And that is important. We have to maximize that. But what we are trying and wanting to show is the force multiplier that creative brings to results and business outcomes. And so that's how we are shifting this year. So a lot more brand. So if you want to call on me, come on. I'm here.
Fantastic. Thank you, Carmen. I would like to talk a little bit about TikTok and the role that actually plays in your 2025 strategy. Obviously, the future is uncertain of TikTok. It's also becoming more expensive for brands to advertise there, basically, right? According to eMarketer, average CPMs in the last 3 years on TikTok have increased with 36% to about $7, basically. And just for comparison, Meta's CPMs have gone down in the same period of time with about 10%. So how are you thinking about TikTok right now? Matt, you want to start?
Sure. So I've spent a lot of time talking about TikTok this year, and it's been a little intense for everyone who touches that world. What I would say, and this might be heresy, I guess, but TikTok's another channel. I think we hold it up on a pedestal as some silver bullet that's going to turn your brand around. I'll kill the suspense. It won't. It is effective. It's a great channel, but it's a channel. So we look at it holistically. And when all of this churn, as it continues to go on, we'll see how it plays out over the next month or two, I guess. We have a lot of great options to reach our consumers in an effective way. So we're trying to keep it in perspective. That being said, TikTok really presents an interesting opportunity for us to reach consumers in different ways. So one of the constructs that we look at, and it's similar to what these guys have talked about, is the way we phrase it is this combination of reach and relevance. So it's the CPMs get to the reach aspect of it. And if I just need to drive impressions, objectively, it's gotten more expensive, and the party's a little bit over on that. But from a relevance perspective, it's hard to argue with the place TikTok plays in culture. So a good example of that is we just partnered with TikTok on Tate McRae's album launch I think a week or two ago out in LA.
It's a good album.
Great album. I don't know if there's any tater tots in the audience here, but that was a big deal. But we worked with them directly with TikTok and Tate's team to sponsor that live stream on TikTok, which is super exciting. So it does play a role in some really interesting moments on top of that reach play. So I think my advice to everyone in the room is to keep it in perspective. It's important, but if it vanishes into thin air in 2 months, I think we're all going to be okay.
Cool, thank you. Let's flip the order. Carmen, you want to go?
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Okay, I love TikTok. And I will say a couple ways that we are using it. We have the same thing kind of battled with the US, but we have, TikTok is also global. And so in terms of, and it's not in trouble over there. And so we actually just did a big career day live in the UK that got, 770,000 views with an engagement rate of 39%. Unbelievable. And that's the way that you have to use it, right? And the reason I love TikTok, outside of just loving TikTok, is that it's right for our audience. When we're trying to drive 18 to 24-year-olds to come enter Indeed and build that lifetime value with them, we have to reach that audience. And so it becomes a channel that we have to be in. Last thing on that is what else we've learned about TikTok is a lot of times we'll put organic content on there and to avoid the CPMs like you're talking about. And that's very easy to see where we're getting the views and the engagement. And then we will boost that content and it brings the overall CPMs down.
Thank you. Gabe?
Yeah, I mean, for us, TikTok is an integral channel, both on the media side, but also just organically as well. I mean, for a brand like us, where our kind of core consumer is, sorry, millennials, but like elder millennials, Gen X, Hispanic families, TikTok was truly and has been like integral in kind of modernizing us, making us a little bit more youthful, allowing us to talk to younger consumers. I mean, even a couple of years ago when we launched Birria for the first time, it was able to drive our product mix from 0 to 8% within a few days just by using creators on the channel. It was the only media that we had live at the time. So we have witnessed the power of TikTok very specifically, not only from a brand perspective, but also a business perspective. That said, can't put your eggs all in one basket, right? And I think what we're starting to do, both from a content perspective, a partner perspective, is starting to spread the wealth a bit. So when we do contracts with creators, we're ensuring that we're covered across multiple channels, that we can cross-post not only on TikTok, but YouTube Shorts, on Instagram Reels, etc. Okay. And so I think it's a little bit of like making sure that you're not over-invested now and maybe like a little bit over your skis on the platform, because yes, it could go away. And frankly, at least for us, it's important to understand where our blind spots are as well from a channel perspective. So as an example, we weren't playing on Snapchat much. And now in the past, it hadn't been a very efficient channel from a straight up media perspective for us. But now we're like, we might have to just start understanding how to leverage a platform both organically and from a media perspective, start testing, get a little bit in there, because that's where our consumers are as well. And I imagine if TikTok were to go away, that's where they're going to start playing more so than maybe Meta and the like. And so we now have to pivot as well. So yeah.
Cool, thank you. Let me just check. Any questions yet from the audience?
Hello. You've talked about the mix of micro nano influencers as well as macro and the impact that those influencers and creators have. Have you noticed that one channel in particular garners better KPIs when using micro nano versus another, which maybe the macro are more impactful?
That's a great question. Interestingly, from the micros and nanos, it just depends kind of where they have the bigger community, if I'm going to be totally honest. So it's a little bit of a wash. When it came to macros, it tended to be TikTok, especially if we put some dollars behind it. But there was a time also where Reels was starting to just put gas on everything, and we saw engagement go up in Reels. So like, I don't want to give you like a yes, it's Instagram or yes, it's TikTok. It's kind of like for this campaign, it was TikTok. For that one, we noticed that Instagram was doing better, so we poured gas over here. It's kind of a bit of a real-time opportunity. But with micros and nanos, it's kind of wherever they have the most, the largest community, for candidly. And I think overall, like the engagement rates are kind of similar. So it's a bit of a wash. Yeah.
Cool, thank you. Any other questions yet?
Yeah. Hi there. Thank you for this. This has been so interesting, and I appreciate this. Quick question. How do you, when you're talking about influencers and how you're working with brands, what is your take on brand safety, and how does your company, make sure that they're within the guidelines?
You want to take that one?
Oh, yeah. Everything is, at Indeed, we are so privacy, GDPR compliant, CCP, all the things. And so we have to make sure that we're actually guarding our data in a privacy compliant way. But from a media perspective, we overlay IAS, or we overlay different brand safety. It depends. Actually, we change and we use actually multiple, but we have all of our media is brand safe. It's really important.
Go ahead.
It's the risk you take with influencers, of course. So you're never going to get 100%. I think you strive to mitigate your risk. That's probably the way to think about it. You do that through your vetting process, making sure you have robust standards there. You're doing a scan, make sure. What have they talked about before? Good news about that is the internet's forever. So you can see what they've said for the last 20 years and figure out if they're a goofball or not. But then going forward, stuff comes up. It's going to happen. So having the process in place to escalate, manage, if you need to work, having the relationship with the creator too is critical. So it's not just some random influencer box going out. They represent your brand. So making sure you have that relationship and be able to address problems as they arise. They will arise. I think that's the important thing for an organization to understand is you're never going to get to 100%. You strive to, and then have the controls in place to quickly address anything that may come up.
Cool.
Strong briefs help too.
Yeah,
Strong briefs.
Fantastic. Thank you. Let's talk about AI for a sec. AI has been optimizing media for years. Its capacity has been improving significantly due to the fact, of course, there's much more data. The models are becoming smarter, and the processing power is becoming much more powerful. So what are some of the ways you and your teams and or agencies are using cutting-edge AI to better improve, let's say, your campaign performance? Matt, you want to start?
Sure. There's so many applications. You're going to hear a couple different ones from us. One I'll talk about here is inside of our retail search. We actually have, you can see the outcomes there when people put words into a search bar and then if they buy or not. Problem is we sell thousands of products across thousands and thousands of campaigns, and then probably millions of keywords get entered in to buy that. Humans can't mine that. That's just not possible, or I can't afford 1,000 people to do it, I guess. So we've leaned on AI for that to really help us speed up that process, mine insights, be able to see what is driving conversions, yes or no, and then be able to take those insights on a regular basis and then put those into our campaigns. So it helps us with that hygiene and some of that work that would just be impossible with humans, and automate, speed up, and help us act smarter with all the different data we now have at our fingertips. As a traditional CPG, we don't have a lot of conversion data, but that's one example where we actually have a closed loop and can see what behaviors are driving what actions are driving what behaviors.
Cool, fantastic, thank you. Gabe? Carmen, go.
Okay. The way we're using AI probably the most right now is through AI DCO, so and dynamic creative optimization. So from our performance campaigns, we have a lot of data, and we can now very easily translate that data into assets and convert it into 10 different languages. So what used to take us a ton of time, literally, we can do all of that in a matter of minutes, and we're doing that. But we have human and brand standards. And so we're using a pencil. I don't know if anyone knows that, but it actually kind of integrates your brand, because the one thing is a lot can go wrong with AI. We actually had something go wrong with AI recently, which was it took a career guide article. Actually, I don't know if I should tell you this, but
Horses out of the barn. Let's go.
I'll go ahead and tell you. We had a career guide article that actually did really well, had a lot of views, and a researcher was doing some research and pulled that article back up, and it was like, once you hit 50, your career is gone. And like, yeah, which I did not, because I am in my 50s. I'm 50. And so I was like, how did that happen? And what had happened, it was AI, and that was AI generated and, put into a little kind of storage somewhere until it was actually a couple years later, brought back up. It was never caught. And so that's why we have to have humans as well as the AI and our brand standards as well. So lots of good lessons.
Fantastic. Thank you. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, we're not using AI on media right now, and not for not wanting to. We just haven't really found a good use for it yet. I've been talking to some platforms specifically around mixed media modeling. You brought up before, which right now we do, I'll call it manually. A person does it, through spreadsheets and pivot tables. So trying to figure out how we might be able to use technology to get results more quickly and more real time. But where we actually use machine learning, so AI adjacent, is on the CRM side right now, to help us do audience segmentation as well as our offer strategy to an extent. So across our loyalty program. So if you want to talk CRM, happy to talk that after this, but that's really right now where we're using machine learning and some AI driven segmentation for us to help drive our loyalty program.
Cool, thank you. Any other questions from the audience at this time?
Hey, Matt, you mentioned the Olympics before. What I'd love to hear from each of you is your perspective on live television events, particularly sports, and the Oscars on ABC just had their ratings went up. But how is that fitting into your strategy going forward and your media mix?
Yeah, I mean, for us, that definitely falls into that relevance point. And we know that television viewership, linear viewership especially, has shifted a lot in the last couple of years. That's not a secret. Live events is the exception. That is when everybody tunes in. You have your Super Bowls, your Oscars, Grammys, Olympic, all the big things. That is when the eyeballs are there. So it's become so important. And it's funny. I mean, if you go back a couple years, we didn't spend a lot inside of sports. It's expensive. It wasn't, it just wasn't a place we played, not for any other reason. Now it's come back into the conversation in a really big way in the last year or two, because there aren't a lot of other opportunities where you can capture live eyeballs, and especially live eyeballs across demographics. That's the thing, where older consumers are still watching television. I still have a linear subscription. I guess I'm an old person. But the live events are definitely the exception. I think what's going to be interesting is how streaming affects live, and that's one of the things I think we're starting to see happen really rapidly in the industry. So the Olympics is an example, having all the different hubs inside of Peacock, the partnership with Roku, making it easier and more tailored, I would say, and to create better live experiences. I made up a phrase, Live Plus. So being able to have alternate audio streams, which you saw through, different big events, having a Spanish language, or an analyst for, the Mannings have their simulcast with Monday Night Football. More of that makes it worth it to have appointment viewing, because you're going to get a better experience. I think that's the interesting brand opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, for us, TV is still a pretty big awareness driving tool. And I think through our MMM, though, we've kind of understood where it's that we can get our best bang for the buck on the TV side. And some of the outer markets, just low penetration, low ROI, doesn't really make sense to spend those dollars. So we kind of redeploy accordingly. But from a straight up topic perspective, yeah, last year in particular, especially with the election cycle, sports was our focus, as was, I'm sure, every QSR, right? But that's also where we knew most most people watching live, that we knew that was going to happen. Now, though, with some of the changes to Nielsen and TRPs, we kind of have had to shift back to full slate, mostly because, we're trying to maximize our dollars. We're a small brand. So just focusing on sport, it's expensive. We can't get as many TRPs out of it. So we're kind of going back to the full slate and being more surgical with sport now.
I can't really add, they said it all, but I would just, one small thing is we are focused on an intention strategy, and sports and live sports, no matter what they are, is where it's at, especially when we're a dual marketplace, job seekers and employers. And our MMM shows that it actually delivers a strong return on ad spend. So I can tell you that because we measure it.
Thank you. I think I saw another hand somewhere over there. Was there another question?
I'm Marianne Molina from 72 and Sunny, Carmen's creative partner, so you should know that. But one of the things I think is so exceptional is that we use Indeed and Carmen and her team as the prime example of how to lead a global brand in today's world and how to use creativity to do that. And like no other entity that we have met yet, you all have driven a global strategy with local execution in how we make the world work better. And how that looks in France just might be different than Japan and different from the US. And the key to driving brand is knowing how to do it in a relevant way. And Indeed has done that. And
Thank you.
Every single client calls us and asks us, we're trying to make our brand relevant. Again, how do we do it? So I would just love for you to share, because we tell your story all the time. I know a lot of people have that question on their mind to talk about how you drive a global brand strategically.
Yeah. So the most important thing is that we have a strong foundational brand strategy. And that is better work leads to better lives. Whatever better means to you. It could be higher salary. It could be more flexibility or work from home or work-life balance or a great company culture, whatever better is to that person. And so we start with our overall strong foundation, brand strategy, and then we go in and we dig into the data. 72 is a big partner with us on that in their Amsterdam office. And we also have country marketing directors that we work hand in hand with. And so they give us a lot of cultural nuance and insight into their market. For example, in the US, salary is like number one. You don't want to get to the end of the interview after you've gone 3 rounds and then find out that the salary isn't that great after you've put all this time into it. So we're focused on salary transparency and having salaries in the job description. In France, salary is important, but it is all about work-life balance with them, and they want to be out and at the cafe. And so that is, and we learn that. And so again, strong foundation,
Not just France.
articulated different ways. We'll get that spot for you. But articulated different ways. And I would just say, deep understanding of the product, the user experience, the audience, and everything has to be on brand, right? Like in this fragmented world, it's the connective tissue, if you will. So, yeah, and they have been awesome partners. Highly recommend them.
That's a great call out, and congrats on the partnership. Let's see, so AI is changing more than just how marketers plan, run, and measure campaigns, of course. It's transforming how customers actually interact with brands, as we know. A new study conducted by Future Publishing revealed that more than a quarter of the Americans, 27%, now uses AI chatbots like ChatGPT instead of traditional search engines like Google. Now, as LLMs become the go-to for everyday Americans, how must your strategy evolve? Matt.
Yeah, this is all about content. I mean, the traditional approach to search is on its head at this point, and it's broader than AI. AI is a huge part of it, but we know TikTok has become the biggest search engine for Gen Z and millennials over Google. So it's where they're searching, how they're searching is completely evolved. So AI is a big part of it. Social search is a big part of it. Influencers seeking out opinions. So the key there is having a holistic content strategy, understanding what, the strong brand strategy as a starting point. That's something that gets glossed over. I think I'm a brand guy by trade, and that is the the foundation of all of this. So who are you as a brand? What is the message you want to have out there, and how do you help your consumer is critical. And then it's designing for today. And that is how are you training these models with your content in a way that you show up when someone searches for an answer in a ChatGPT or a Perplexity or a TikTok or wherever. And it is far more complex than ever. I feel that we spend 95% of our time on the paid side of all this and 5 to 0 on the content side of this. That has to change. I mean, that is just a fundamental change that has to happen across in the industry. And I don't know what the right mix is there, but it's certainly more than today. So it all comes down to meaningful content that people actually need and want, not that is checking a box. You have your most junior ABM churning out that no one's going to read. The stakes have just gone up and up and up from a content perspective.
Cool, thanks. Gabe?
Yeah, I mean, just to add to that, because like +1 to everything you just said, and I think it's the irony of it. It's a new problem with an old solution in a way. I mean, just yesterday we were talking with our SEO agency around, do we need to start a blog to help us with some of the generative AI search results on top of like Google and things like that, because it's going to start crawling more, and we need to own. That's a conversation that now we need to own. And so if Google through their AI tools are going to start pulling from more articles and more blog posts and things like that, it's like, holy crap, like literally what we were doing 10 years ago is now relevant again for completely different reasons, right? And so content 1,000% plays. So there's content in that written word in that regard, right? And making sure anything you put on a website is SEO rich and has all the right metadata and keywords. But from the TikTok perspective, I've actually told my social media manager is, yes, you have to support what we're doing today, but I'd actually love you to go back, look at what maybe we've created before things got crazy, resurface them. Also, start to create content that is more evergreen, so that on TikTok in particular, people want to be like, what's the best chicken spot near me? We have a video that could surface for something like that, right? And so it's like, now you have to look at your social channels as SEO as well, or SEO opportunities as well. So it's been really fascinating how it's changed, but it's also completely stayed the same.
Thanks. Carmen?
Yeah, I would just say agree with both. It's definitely content. The other way I would answer that is we are building at Indeed an agentic experience, so basically a talent agent. And so imagine how, and this has been a lot of fun with engineers, as you can imagine, but imagine if you could have your own personal talent agent, which is what we're building through AI, that says, as long as you have a great profile that says, here are my passions, here's really what I'm looking for, that is a really deep profile, then this agent can go out and search, find a job for you, say, here's the salary, it matches your work-life balance, or it matches your, flexibility or something like that. Here's the company review, by the way, the CEO is fabulous or not, you will never want to work there. And then, and by the way, here are the top 5 interview questions. We'll write your cover letter and we'll tailor your CV for you. And so that's really what we're launching at September 10th. So you heard it here first. Hope I'm not in trouble. But it really is going to change the way, but it's going to change our business. Right now, we have 350 million uniques that come to our site every month. That is going to change. If we're out chasing people now, they're not going to come to our site. And so we're really going through what's that going to mean, as we transform our business.
Fantastic, thank you. Quick check-in. I do think we might have time for a few questions, if there are any.
All my friends are asking.
Hi. So going back to a centralized approach in protecting the brand at the global level and then bringing in the insights for the different geos or markets, how do you then apply that with the creative and the creative matching the media and bring those two together to tell a story?
Say that again, Elizabeth, like the creative matching the media.
Right.
Have those
if you're
insights.
globalizing the media, but you want to tell a story that's core to the different geos or the different markets,
Yeah.
how do you approach that from a creative standpoint?
We follow the audience, and so we tailor every media plan by market, and we deliver on those assets. Again, it's just making sure we have that. We call it the blue thread through everything, so we make sure everything's on brand. But we're generating tons of assets for each market, depending on whatever media plan is there to best reach them.
I would just add, I think that's a challenge because oftentimes it's a chicken or egg question. But the answer, when we found that we have the most success, is when we pull the discussion upstream with everybody. So have the media and creative together to figure out what we're trying to do, so that we're not trying to retrofit something. We're being handed either a media plan that doesn't match the creative idea, or creative idea that I have no way of running in media because we didn't buy TV on this brand, but you created this amazing TV asset. Like, there's some very tactical realities that we have to contend with, and it's earlier collaboration, get the right people at the table together. Sounds easy, doesn't happen usually.
I agree with that, though. I think that that's so important, and that the media and the creative have to be together, because if you think about what makes you different, right, it is the creative as a force multiplier. And I am a media person at heart. So to say that really is something like, if you know the idea, you know your audience, then you can marry those two. And the media and creative teams have to be working hand in hand together. Yeah.
Creative is the number one driver of media ROI. So like, that is what we have to make sure we get right. Shitty creative begets shitty results. I think Nielsen, that was a study they did, but
I think I read that. So.
Yeah, but it's the truth. Like, you're hit with thousands of marketing messages a day. Garbage creative will be ignored.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Hey, thank you so much. This has been great so far, guys. So thank you for all your insights and your knowledge. It's been deeply appreciated. I would love to circle back more on the retail media networks. We're a large CPG commodity and we're exploring that space. How do you find the right balance of putting your budgets into these closed-looped environments, like you said, versus having that organic presence where, all right, we're not really seeing the immediate revenue from that, but it ultimately drives to it?
That's you.
Yeah, I think I'm the answer for this one. So we look at it in two ways. So the on-site environment, the media, the inventory they uniquely have. When someone is on an app, a website, searching, we look at that through the lens of e-commerce sales. So we plan our investment to our e-commerce goals. So what do we need to spend to make sure we have the right presence? We're showing up in search results. We think of it as our, that's our digital aisle. Do we have distribution? Yes or no? So we plan it that way for the on-site, and it's very tied to performance. It's all lower funnel conversion. Outside of that, it has to hold up against anything I'm spending brand media on. So if I'm buying CTV through a retailer, if I'm going to pay a 40% premium for their data and for the privilege of using their audience, it better be 40% more effective, or else I'm not going to spend the money. So you have to be really explicit. Am I trying to drive marketplace, or am I trying to drive e-commerce? The e-commerce one's a little bit easier because it's like it either converted or it didn't. And I have e-com objectives that I met or didn't. The offsite's the really tricky one, and you have to have the right measurement in place and hold them accountable to standards.
Hi, thank you guys so much. This content is really insightful. I wanted Carmen to ask you a little bit more on what you spoke about with measuring brand health metrics and how that impacts business outcomes. So curious if you or anyone on the panel can share a few thoughts or maybe learnings around how you've measured brand health and use that as a way to inform optimizations in your campaigns.
Yeah, I'll start and then we can go. Obviously, there's all the brand lift studies and things like that, but really we have an MMM or CMM, whatever you want to call it, that takes in all the macro environments, the job listings, the inflation, all of that kind of base that affects business outcomes. And then we overlay all of our efforts by market, by channel, and put it kind of into this. It's actually not a black box. It's more of a clear box. And we are literally able to, our planners can go, our media planners can go in scenario plan and say, if I put this here, and this here, then this is kind of the incremental revenue we'll get. This is how it'll change unaided consideration. And this is our ROAS, for example. And so it really allows us, now we use this, and we actually use it mostly for our CFO to get budgets. And I will tell you, just based on this past year, brand marketing drove 51% of marketing's revenue contribution. That is a strong story to tell the CFO, because it's not coming from us, it's actually coming from a model. At the same time, we also do clean rooms where we can take our data and our partners' data and then test and look at incrementality on conversions, and then we calibrate the model. So we're always working, and then we do experiments. It's kind of like the triangle. But it really is something, if you didn't find me after this, I'm happy to talk in detail, because it's been a game changer for us in the marketing department at Indeed.
I mean, that's a phenomenal answer. So maybe it's different from us or for us. One of the things that, as I talked about before with the influencers, right? Part of that is because we were trying to drive awareness, but also consideration. And it's a little bit harder for us at the moment to actually measure a lot of the awareness stuff, other than like through our brand tracker. We get quarterly results. We see how we've shifted in certain key questions, which is always great. As long as that's going up and we're like on par with our competitors, we're in a good place. We can kind of point to stuff. But what's been really nice is there's this group that I'm particularly kind of obsessed with. They're a research firm, Gen Z research firm called DCDX, and they just released their Magnetic 100 for the restaurant industry in particular. EPL is in the top 100. I think we're number 73. We're also in the top 20 brands that are rising in terms of like basically in their like magnetic score, and it's kind of like an engagement rate slope of UGC over people talking about you and like all this other stuff. And so for me, that's actually a light bulb went off when I saw that, because I'm like, this is actually a really tangible way for me to showcase all the work we're doing with content, all the work we're doing with creators. It's actually helping to drive our brand magnetism, which is effectively how people are talking about us, their awareness, et cetera. So that's maybe a slightly different approach that I'm looking to actually include into what we do.
The only thing I'd add to that, aside from great question, you must work at a really smart organization. She works at Kenvue. Would be, don't look at only one metric. I think there's so many ways to look at performance. If you get laser focused on only one KPI, you can drive bad behavior. You can optimize to the wrong thing. You have to consider performance, brand, equity, like all those things matter. And they are oftentimes going to go in different directions. You have to figure out how to calibrate based upon your business objectives in the moment and all of that, and investments, and it could all work together. So really the biggest piece of advice is try to look at more than one piece of data and create more of a contextual picture of what's going on.
Team, we are at time. I want to, thank Brand Innovators for their amazing hospitality. I want to wish you a great South by, and I want to thank this amazing panel. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you all.